Hey guys, tonight we're stepping back into a world that feels both familiar and impossibly foreign. A world of milkmen and party lines, of cigarette smoke curling through every room, of children playing unsupervised until the streetlights came on. We're talking about 1950s America, specifically, the everyday rhythms of ordinary life that shaped a generation but would absolutely baffle anyone living today. Before we drift into this journey, I want to sincerely thank you for being here and for suggesting this topic. Your ideas and comments truly shape what we explore together, and I'm grateful for every suggestion you send my way. If you're enjoying these trips back in time, a like and subscribe would mean the world, but only if it feels right. And if you're listening on a different platform, we're now on Spotify too, so feel free to check us out there via the link in the description. Now, take a second to get comfortable. Dim the lights if you can, maybe switch on a fan for that gentle white noise. Settle into your favourite spot and just let yourself be here. Because tonight we're going to ask some questions that might surprise you. What did a Tuesday morning actually feel like in 1955? What did the hardware store smell like when you walked through the door? How did families spend their Sunday afternoons before television took over completely? What sounds filled the air at dinner time? What did children do all day without screens, without supervision, without the constant hum of notifications? And what would it feel like to live in a world where privacy was assumed, where neighbours knew your name, and where time moved just a little bit slower? And just like that, it is 1955. The coffee is already percolating on the stove. Someone down the street is mowing their lawn with a push mower that clicks rhythmically with each pass. The morning newspaper sits on the porch, damp with dew, and the day is just beginning. Let's start with the morning, before you're even awake. In the cool blue darkness before dawn, the milkman is already making his rounds. His truck hums softly down your street, stopping at each house with the practiced precision of someone who has done this route 1,000 times. Glass bottles clink gently as he lifts them from their metal crates, the sound carrying through the quiet neighbourhood like a gentle announcement that morning is coming. He knows your family's order by heart. 2 quarts of whole milk, a pint of cream on Thursdays, extra butter when your mother is baking. He sets the bottles carefully in the insulated box on your porch, takes the empty ones you left out the night before, and moves on without a sound. You're still asleep when this happens, but the ritual shapes your morning anyway. By the time you come downstairs, the milk is waiting, cold and fresh, beads of condensation forming on the glass. Your mother brings it inside, wipes the bottles dry and pours milk into your cereal, into your father's coffee, into the pitcher she'll use for cooking later. The cream is so thick it doesn't pour easily. It glops out in rich yellow clumps that swirl slowly into the coffee, turning it pale and sweet. The bottles themselves are beautiful in their simplicity. Clear glass, heavy and solid, with the name of the dairy embossed into the surface. They're designed to be returned, reused, cycled back through the system dozens of times before they crack or chip. Your mother rinses them after they're empty and sets them back in the insulated box on the porch. Tomorrow morning, or the morning after, the milkman will collect them and replace them with full ones. It's a system built on routine, on trust, on the assumption that tomorrow will look much like today. The milkman himself is a figure you rarely see but somehow know. He's part of the neighbourhood's invisible infrastructure, like the paper boy or the mailman. He works while the world sleeps, moving through the pre-dawn quiet with the kind of efficiency that comes from years of repetition. In winter, his breath fogs in the cold air. In summer, he's finished before the heat sets in. He knows who's out of town, who's having company, who just had a baby and needs extra milk. He adjusts deliveries without being asked. There's something comforting about the predictability of it all. The milk arrives whether you remember to order it or not. The empties disappear. The system runs smoothly because everyone plays their part. It's the kind of quiet cooperation that holds a neighbourhood together, the small exchanges that happen without fanfare or recognition, and the milk itself tastes different than what comes in cartons later. Richer, creamier, with a layer of cream that rises to the top overnight. Your mother skims it off for whipping or lets it mix back in, depending on her mood. Sometimes in winter, if the milk sits too long on the porch, it freezes and the cream pushes the cardboard cap an inch. Above the bottle's rim, a small tower of frozen dairy that has to thaw before you can pour it. This is how mornings begin in 1955, with milk delivered in darkness, with glass bottles sweating on the porch, with a system so steady and reliable it feels like it will last forever. The kitchen fills with warmth and the sound of bacon sizzling in the cast iron skillet. Your mother stands at the stove in her housecoat, hair still in curlers, flipping eggs with the ease of someone who has made this breakfast 1,000 times. There are no microwaves, no toaster pastries, no grab-and-go options. Breakfast is an event that requires presence, attention, and time. The coffee percolates on the back burner, filling the house with that rich, almost burnt smell that meant morning had officially arrived. Toast browns under the broiler because you have to watch it, flip it, catch it before it turns to charcoal. Your father sits at the table reading the newspaper folded neatly into quarters so it fits beside his plate. The bacon grease pops and spatters, leaving tiny golden dots on the stovetop that your mother will wipe away later. She uses a fork to turn the strips, arranging them so they cook evenly, reaching that perfect balance between crispy and chewy that makes bacon worth eating. The smell is overwhelming, rich and salty and smoky, drifting through the house and pulling everyone from their beds without a single word being spoken. The eggs come next, cracked one-handed into the skillet, the whites spreading out and bubbling at the edges while the yolks stay intact, bright orange and trembling. Your mother knows exactly how everyone likes them. Your father wants his over easy, yolks runny enough to soak into his toast. You want yours scrambled, soft and fluffy with a little pepper mixed in. Your brother wants his fried hard, no jiggle, because he's suspicious of anything that looks wet. The toast requires vigilance. Your mother slides the bread under the broiler, sets a timer in her head, and waits. After a minute, she opens the oven, flips each slice with a fork and slides it back in. Look away for too long and it burns. Pull it out too soon and it's pale and disappointing. She butters it while it's still hot, watching the butter melt into the bread and pool in the corners. Everything is cooked in the same skillet, layered with flavour. Bacon first, then eggs in the bacon grease, then sometimes potatoes if there are leftovers from last night's dinner, sliced thin and fried until they're golden and crispy at the edges. Nothing is wasted. The grease gets poured into a coffee can kept by the stove, saved for cooking later. Your father folds his newspaper down long enough to accept his plate, nods his thanks, and goes back to reading. You sit across from him, drowsy and quiet, eating slowly because there's no rush. School doesn't start for another hour. Your mother pours coffee for your father, milk for you, and finally sits down with her own plate, smaller than everyone else's because she always serves herself last. The kitchen is warm, almost too warm, from the stove running for the past 30 minutes. Sunlight starts to filter through the window above the sink, catching the steam rising from the coffee cups. The radio plays softly on the counter, big band music or the morning news, low enough to be background but present enough to fill the silence. This is breakfast in the 1950s. Slow, deliberate, made from scratch because there is no other way. It ties the family together for 20 minutes every morning, a small ritual of nourishment and presence before everyone scatters into their separate days. You step outside into the crisp morning air, lunchbox in one hand, books strapped together with a leather belt in the other. Your mother waves from the doorway but doesn't follow you down the sidewalk. She doesn't drive you to school. She doesn't walk beside you. You simply go down streets you know by heart. There are no car seats, no seat belts, no parental escorts required. Children as young as 5 or 6 navigate their neighbourhoods independently, crossing streets, cutting through yards, stopping to examine interesting rocks or chase a stray cat. The world feels open, accessible, and safe in a way that would be unthinkable today. The walk takes 15 minutes, maybe 20 if you dawdle. You know every crack in the sidewalk, every house along the route, every dog that barks from behind a fence. You know which yards have the best trees for climbing, which driveways are steep enough to coast down on your bike, which corner store will sell you penny candy after school if you have a nickel in your pocket. Other children appear from their houses joining the informal parade. Some are friends, some are just familiar faces, kids you recognise from school or church or the neighbourhood pool in summer. You walk together loosely, not in a supervised line, but in a scattered organic cluster. Conversations start and stop. Someone brags about a new toy. Someone else complains about a math test. A younger child struggles to keep up, and an older one slows down without being asked. There are no crossing guards at most intersections, no painted crosswalks, no flashing lights. You simply look both ways, wait for a break in traffic, and go. Cars stop when they see you. Drivers know that children walk to school and they expect it, plan for it, slow down in neighbourhoods during morning hours. You pass the same landmarks every day. The corner store with the striped awning, the house with the rose bushes that bloom bright red in summer, the empty lot where older kids sometimes play baseball after school. These landmarks anchor you, give you a sense of place and routine. The walk is so familiar it becomes automatic, your feet carrying you without conscious thought. Sometimes you stop along the way. A puddle after a rainstorm demands investigation, requires jumping, splashing, testing its depth. A caterpillar crossing the sidewalk needs to be relocated to the grass. A friend's mother calls from her porch, asking if you'll walk with her son because he's running late. You wait, and he comes tumbling out the door, shirt half tucked, shoelaces untied. No one worries. No one calls to check that you arrived. Your mother trusts that you know the way, that you'll stay with the group, that you'll look both ways, that the world is fundamentally safe enough to let you move through it unsupervised. And mostly, it is. Neighbours watch from their windows, not hovering but present. A loose network of adults who know the neighbourhood children and would step in if something seemed wrong. When you arrive at school, you're awake, alert, energised by the walk and the fresh air. You've had time to talk with friends, to let your mind wander, to transition from home to school at a human pace. There's no rush, no stress, no parent anxiously checking the clock. This is how children move through the world in 1955, independently, confidently, trusted to navigate the small distances of their daily lives without constant supervision. It builds something in you, a sense of competence, of autonomy, of belonging to a place you know by heart. The doctor's waiting room smells like cigarette smoke. So does the grocery store, the bank, the post office, and your living room. Your father smokes at the breakfast table. Your teacher smokes at her desk between lessons. The bus driver smokes while driving. Pregnant women smoke. Teenagers smoke. Doctors recommend specific brands for throat irritation. Ashtrays sit on every surface. Coffee tables, restaurant counters, hospital bedside tables. The idea that smoking might be harmful is barely a whisper, and the idea that it might be banned indoors would sound like science fiction. Cigarettes are simply part of the air you breathe, woven into the fabric of daily life so completely that you don't even notice the haze. Your father lights his first cigarette with his morning coffee, shaking one from the pack and tapping it against the table before striking a match. The flame flares briefly, then settles. He inhales deeply, and smoke curls from his nostrils as he exhales, drifting lazily toward the ceiling. The ashtray beside his coffee cup already holds 2 butts from yesterday, lipstick-stained remnants of your mother's evening cigarettes. At school, your teacher keeps a glass ashtray on the corner of her desk. Between spelling lessons and arithmetic drills, she lights up, taking quick drags while she grades papers or writes tomorrow's assignments on the chalkboard. Sometimes she holds the cigarette between her fingers while she talks, ash growing longer and longer until it drops onto the floor. No one thinks this is strange. No one complains. The classroom windows stay closed in winter, and the smoke hangs in the air, mixing with the smell of chalk dust and children's lunches. The grocery store is the same. Your mother pushes the cart down the aisles while a cigarette dangles from her lips, squinting through the smoke as she checks her shopping list. The checkout girl smokes while she rings up purchases, setting her cigarette on the edge of the counter between customers. The store manager smokes in the back room. Even the stock boys smoke while they unload trucks. Restaurants have ashtrays at every table, sturdy glass ones that get dumped and wiped between customers, but never quite stop smelling like old smoke. Your family goes out for dinner on Friday nights, and by the time the meal arrives, the ashtray already holds 3 or 4 butts. Your father smokes between courses. Your mother smokes with her coffee. The people at the next table smoke through their entire meal, stubbing out one cigarette and immediately lighting another. Doctors smoke in their offices. Your family physician keeps a cigarette burning in an ashtray on his desk while he examines you, listens to your heart, checks your throat. He recommends a particular brand to your mother, tells her it's easier on the throat, less irritating. Some brands advertise that doctors prefer them, that more physicians smoke their cigarettes than any other. It's marketing, but it's also believed. If doctors smoke, it must be safe. Airplanes have smoking sections, which is to say, the back half of the plane where the smoke supposedly stays contained, though of course it doesn't. It drifts forward, settles into the fabric of the seats, clings to everyone's clothes. Buses are the same. The driver smokes with the window cracked, and passengers smoke in their seats, flicking ashes into the aisle. Even hospitals allow it. Patients smoke in their beds, visitors smoke in the waiting rooms, nurses smoke at their stations during breaks. New mothers smoke in the maternity ward. The smell of cigarettes mixes with the smell of disinfectant and flowers, a strange combination that comes to mean healing, recovery, being cared for. No one talks about secondhand smoke. No one worries about children breathing it in. The haze is everywhere, invisible because it's constant, noticed only in its absence. This is life in the 1950s, lived in a permanent cloud of smoke, where cigarettes are as common as coffee and just as socially acceptable. The air tastes different, smells different, carries a faint grey tint that you only recognise years later when it's finally gone. The telephone hangs on the kitchen wall, heavy and black, connected by a cord that spirals down like a spring. But this phone line isn't just yours. It's shared with 3 other families on your street. A party line that means privacy is more of a suggestion than a guarantee. When you pick up the receiver, you listen first to see if someone else is already talking. If they are, you hang up and wait your turn. Sometimes you listen a little longer than you should, catching fragments of Mrs. Henderson's conversation with her sister or the Millers arguing about grocery money. Everyone knows everyone's business, not through malice, but through the simple architecture of the telephone system. Each family on the party line has its own ring pattern. 2 long rings for your house, 1 long and 1 short for the Hendersons, 3 short rings for the Millers. When the phone rings, everyone on the line hears it. You learn to recognize your pattern immediately, to distinguish between your rings and someone else's, though sometimes you pick up anyway, just to see who's calling the neighbours. The etiquette is unspoken but understood. You're supposed to hang up if someone else is already using the line, You're supposed to keep your calls brief so others have a chance to use the phone. You're not supposed to listen in, though of course people do, carefully, quietly, breathing as softly as possible so the faint static doesn't give them away. Your mother calls her sister every Thursday afternoon, and the conversation follows the same pattern every time. She picks up the receiver, listens for voices, hears silence and dials. The phone rings in your aunt's kitchen 2 towns over. They talk about recipes, about children, about your grandmother's health. Your mother keeps one eye on the clock, conscious that she's tying up the line, that Mrs. Henderson might need to call the doctor, that someone might have an emergency. Sometimes, mid-conversation, you hear a faint click. Someone else has picked up, realised the line is busy and hung up again. Your mother pauses, apologises to your aunt and says, "I should let you go, someone needs the phone." They say their goodbyes quickly, and your mother hangs up, feeling vaguely guilty for taking so long. Other times the click doesn't come with a corresponding hang-up. Someone is listening. Your mother knows it by the quality of the silence, the faint suggestion of breathing on the other end. She lowers her voice, speaks more carefully, edits out the details she doesn't want shared. Later she'll mention it to your father. "I think Mrs. Henderson was listening again." He'll shrug. Everyone listens sometimes. Emergencies complicate everything. If someone needs to call the doctor or the police, they pick up the phone and announce it. "This is an emergency. I need the line." Whoever is talking hangs up immediately, no questions asked. The emergency caller makes their call, and everyone else waits, listening to their own receiver occasionally to see if the line is free yet. Teenagers hate the party line. Privacy is impossible. Your older sister can't talk to boys without knowing that Mrs. Miller might be listening, might mention it to her mother at church, might turn a harmless conversation into neighbourhood gossip. She keeps her calls short and vague, speaking in a code her friends understand but adults might miss. The line connects you to your neighbours in ways both practical and intrusive. You hear their voices more often, then you see their faces. You know when someone is sick because you hear them calling the doctor. You know when someone is having company because you hear them ordering extra groceries. You know when someone is struggling because you hear the tension in their voice, the long pauses, the careful phrasing of difficult conversations. It's a strange kind of intimacy, forced and familiar, built on the shared infrastructure of communication. The party line erases boundaries, makes private life semi-public, turns every phone call into a potential performance for an invisible audience. And yet, it works. People adapt. They learn to say less, to speak carefully, to wait their turn. The system is inefficient and intrusive, but it's also affordable, accessible, and somehow fitting for a time when neighbourhoods are small and everyone already knows everyone's business anyway. Not every house has a refrigerator yet, and even those that do sometimes keep an icebox in the basement or back porch for extra storage. The iceman arrives twice a week, driving a truck packed with enormous blocks of ice wrapped in burlap and sawdust. He carries them with iron tongs, hefting 50-pound blocks onto his shoulder and carrying them through your back door like it's nothing. Children follow his truck in summer, picking up the small chips of ice that fall onto the street, letting them melt on their tongues. The ice goes into the top compartment of the icebox, and a drip pan underneath catches the meltwater. A pan that must be emptied daily, or it will overflow onto the kitchen floor. The iceman's truck is easy to recognise, battered, dripping, with ice painted in large letters on the side. It moves slowly through the neighbourhood, stopping at houses that have cards in their windows indicating how much ice they need. The cards have numbers printed on them: 25, 50, 75, 100, corresponding to pounds. You turn the card to display the number you need, and the iceman knows at a glance what to deliver. He works quickly, efficiently, a man who has perfected the choreography of his job. He opens the back of the truck, selects a block of the right size, grips it with the tongs, and hoists it onto his leather-padded shoulder. Water drips from the ice, soaking his shirt, but he doesn't seem to notice. He walks up your driveway, through your back door, straight to the icebox, and slides the block into place with practiced ease. The whole process takes less than a minute. Your mother pays him from the housekeeping money she keeps in a jar in the cupboard. She counts out coins, hands them over, and he tips his cap before heading back to his truck. Sometimes she offers him a glass of water, especially in summer when the heat is brutal and he's been working since dawn. He drinks it standing on the back porch, water dripping from his clothes onto the steps, then hands the glass back and moves on to the next house. Children love the iceman for the chips. As he works, small pieces of ice break off, scattering onto the truck bed, onto the street, onto the driveway. Kids swarm behind him, gathering the chips like treasure, sucking on them until their mouths go numb. In summer, it's the coldest, most refreshing thing imaginable. Better than popsicles because it's free and illicit and somehow more satisfying. The icebox itself is a simple but effective technology. It's essentially a wooden cabinet with heavy insulation and a compartment at the top for the ice. Cold air sinks, keeping the food below chilled. It works well enough for milk, butter, eggs, leftovers, though nothing stays fresh as long as it would in a modern refrigerator. Your mother plans carefully, buying only what the family will eat in a day or two, knowing that anything left too long will spoil. The drip pan is a constant concern. It sits underneath the icebox, catching the water as the ice melts, slowly filling over the course of the day. Your mother empties it every evening, carrying it carefully to the sink, pouring out a gallon or more of cold water. If she forgets, the pan overflows, and water spreads across the kitchen floor, seeping into the corners, soaking the rug. Some families have already switched to electric refrigerators, gleaming white appliances that hum quietly in the corner and never need ice. Your mother wants one, talks about it sometimes, but they're expensive, and your father isn't convinced they're worth the cost. The icebox works fine, he says. Why spend money we don't have? But the iceman's days are numbered. Refrigerators are becoming more affordable, more common. Families are switching over one by one, and the iceman's route gets shorter every year. By the end of the decade, he'll be gone, his truck retired, his job made obsolete by electricity and progress. For now, though, he's still part of the neighbourhood's rhythm, still making his rounds, still hefting blocks of ice onto his shoulder and leaving a trail of dripping water and delighted children in his wake. When you're sick, your mother doesn't drive you to a clinic or an urgent care centre. She calls the doctor and he comes to you. His black bag contains everything he needs: stethoscope, thermometer, tongue depressors, a few small bottles of medicine. He sits on the edge of your bed, feels your forehead with the back of his hand, listens to your chest, and writes a prescription in handwriting only the pharmacist can decode. The visit costs a few dollars, sometimes less, sometimes nothing if your family is struggling. He knows your name, your siblings' names, your medical history by heart. Medicine feels personal, unhurried, and somehow gentler than the fluorescent efficiency of modern healthcare. The doctor arrives mid-morning, parking his sedan in front of your house and walking up the path carrying his bag. Your mother meets him at the door, already talking, describing your symptoms in the worried, detailed way mothers do when their children are sick. He nods, asks a few questions, and follows her upstairs to your room. You're lying in bed, feverish and miserable, and the sound of his footsteps on the stairs is both comforting and frightening. He's kind but serious, a man who takes illness seriously, who doesn't dismiss your discomfort or rush through the exam. He sets his bag on the dresser, opens it carefully and pulls out his stethoscope. The stethoscope is cold against your chest, and he tells you to breathe deeply, hold it, breathe again. He listens carefully, moving the stethoscope from place to place, his face calm and unreadable. Then he pulls out a tongue depressor, tells you to say, "ah," and peers into your throat, his face so close you can smell the faint scent of pipe tobacco on his clothes. He takes your temperature with a glass thermometer, shaking it down first with a practiced flick of his wrist, then sliding it under your tongue and telling you to keep your mouth closed. You wait in silence while he feels your neck, checking for swollen glands, his fingers gentle but firm. When the thermometer is ready, he pulls it out, holds it up to the light, and reads the mercury. 102, he says to your mother, who hovers anxiously in the doorway. Probably a virus. Keep her in bed, fluids, aspirin for the fever. If it's not better in 3 days, call me again. He writes something on a small pad, tears off the sheet, and hands it to your mother. Then he closes his bag, pats your hand, and tells you to rest. Your mother walks him downstairs and you hear their voices murmuring in the hallway, too low to make out the words. The front door opens and closes, and he's gone. Later, your mother takes the prescription to the pharmacy, where the pharmacist reads the doctor's scrawled handwriting and fills a small bottle with pink liquid that tastes like cherries and medicine. She brings it home, pours a spoonful, and you swallow it, making a face, and she promises you can have ginger ale afterward if you're good. The doctor doesn't send a bill right away. Sometimes it arrives weeks later, a simple handwritten invoice for $5. Sometimes it doesn't arrive at all, if he knows your family is struggling, if your father is out of work, if money is tight. Medicine in the 1950s operates on trust and compassion, as much as it does on payments and procedures. You see the same doctor for everything. Colds, broken bones, stitches, annual checkups. He delivered you when you were born, treated your childhood illnesses, set your brother's arm when he fell out of the tree. He knows your family's health history by heart, remembers which medications you're allergic to, asks about your grandmother's arthritis when he sees your mother at church. There's a continuity to it, a sense of being cared for by someone who knows you, who sees you as a whole person rather than a collection of symptoms. The doctor isn't just a medical professional. He's part of the community, someone you see at the grocery store, at school events, at town meetings. He's your neighbour, and his care extends beyond the boundaries of illness. This is medicine before specialisation, before insurance companies, before liability concerns transformed every interaction into a careful dance of documentation. It's slower, simpler, built on relationships rather than systems. And when you're lying in bed, sick and miserable, the sound of the doctor's car pulling up outside is one of the most comforting sounds in the world. 6 o'clock means dinner, and dinner means the whole family gathered around the table. Your father sits at the head, your mother serves from the kitchen, and no one eats until everyone is seated. There are no phones to check, no screens to distract, no individual meals tailored to preferences. You eat what is served: pot roast, mashed potatoes, green beans from a can, white bread with butter. Conversation happens naturally because there is nothing else to do. Your father asks about school. Your mother mentions the neighbour's new car. Your brother complains about his math homework. The meal lasts an hour, not because the food takes that long to eat, but because sitting together is the point. The table is set properly, plates at every seat, forks on the left, knives and spoons on the right, napkins folded beside each plate. Your mother has been cooking since 4 o'clock, the pot roast slow braising in the oven, the potatoes boiling on the stove, the green beans warming in a saucepan. Everything is timed to be ready at the same moment, hot and ready to serve when your father comes through the door. He washes his hands at the kitchen sink, loosens his tie, and takes his seat. Your mother brings the platter to the table, the roast sitting in a pool of dark gravy, surrounded by carrots and onions that have cooked alongside it. She sets it in front of your father, and he carves, slicing the meat and serving each person in turn. Your mother first, then you, then your brother, then himself. The mashed potatoes come next, creamy and smooth, whipped with butter and milk until they're pale and fluffy. Your mother passes the bowl, and everyone takes a spoonful. Then the green beans, limp and soft from the can, heated with a pat of butter. Then the bread basket, slices of white bread still warm from being wrapped in a towel. No one eats until everyone is served. It's a rule, unspoken but absolute. You wait, fork in hand, until your mother finally sits down and your father nods. Then you eat. The food is simple, plain, cooked the same way your grandmother cooked it, the same way her mother cooked it. There are no exotic spices, no complex recipes, no attempts at fusion or experimentation. Pot roast is pot roast. Meat, potatoes, carrots, gravy. It tastes like home, like safety, like the steady predictability of family. Conversation unfolds in the spaces between bites. Your father asks about your day, and you tell him about the spelling test, about recess, about the new girl who sits behind you. He listens, nods, asks follow-up questions. Your mother mentions that Mrs. Henderson called, that the Millers are having work done on their porch, that the grocery store is having a sale on canned peaches. Your brother talks about baseball practice, about the game on Saturday, about how he needs new cleats but is afraid to ask. No one is in a hurry. There's nowhere to go, nothing pulling your attention away. The television is off. The radio is silent. The only sounds are the clink of silverware against plates, the murmur of voices, the occasional scrape of a chair being adjusted. Your mother gets up occasionally to refill the water pitcher or bring more bread from the kitchen, but otherwise she sits, eats, participates in the conversation. This is her time to rest, to sit down after hours of standing, to enjoy the meal she's prepared. When the main course is finished, she clears the plates and brings dessert. Canned fruit cocktail served in small, glass bowls, or maybe jello with canned pears suspended inside, or sometimes just cookies from the jar on the counter. It's sweet, simple, enough to signal that the meal is ending. Your father finishes his coffee. Your mother begins to gather the dishes. You and your brother are excused, sent off to do homework while your mother washes up. Your father retreats to the living room with his newspaper. The meal is over, but its presence lingers. The feeling of being fed, of being together, of being part of something larger than yourself. Dinner in the 1950s isn't just about food. It's about family, about routine, about the daily ritual of gathering and sharing a meal. It's one of the few times all day when everyone is in the same place at the same time, and that matters in ways no one quite articulates, but everyone understands. Television is still new enough to feel magical, and there are only a handful of channels that broadcast for a few hours each evening. Families gather in the living room when their favourite show comes on, because if you miss it, it's gone. There is no recording, no rewinding, no watching on demand. You sit together on the sofa and you watch whatever is on. Variety shows, westerns, game shows. Milton Berle making everyone laugh. The television set itself is a piece of furniture, a large wooden console that takes up half the wall. When the national anthem plays at the end of the broadcast day, the screen goes dark and that's it. Television is over until tomorrow. The television is kept in the living room, positioned so everyone can see it from the sofa or the armchairs arranged in a semicircle. It's a massive piece of furniture, more cabinet than screen, with a small glass picture tube set into the front and speakers hidden behind decorative fabric. The wood is polished to a high shine, and your mother treats it like a valuable piece of furniture, dusting it carefully, placing doilies on top to protect the surface. Turning it on is a process. You flip a heavy knob and the set hums to life, the tube warming up slowly. For the first 30 seconds the screen shows nothing but static, a grey snow that hisses and crackles. Then, gradually, an image begins to appear, fuzzy at first, then sharpening into recognisable shapes. Your father adjusts the rabbit ear antennas, moving them up and down, left and right, until the picture clears and the sound comes through properly. There are only 3 or 4 channels depending on how far you are from the nearest city. Each channel broadcasts for a few hours in the evening, starting around 6 and ending by 11. The programming is scheduled, fixed, inflexible. If I Love Lucy is on at 8, that's when you watch it. If you're eating dinner or doing homework or talking on the phone, you miss it. There's no pause button, no way to save it for later. Your family develops a routine around the television schedule. Dinner ends by 7 so everyone can settle in for the evening shows. Your mother brings her mending to the sofa, sewing while she watches. Your father sits in his chair with his pipe. You and your brother sprawl on the floor, as close to the screen as your mother will allow. The shows themselves are wholesome, family-friendly, designed to entertain without offending. Westerns are popular, cowboys and sheriffs, shootouts and moral lessons, good guys and bad guys clearly defined. Variety shows bring singers, dancers, comedians, all performing live, mistakes and all. Game shows invite ordinary people to compete for prizes, their excitement genuine and infectious. Between shows, commercials play, jingles that get stuck in your head, slogans you find yourself repeating. The commercials are simple, straightforward, a man in a suit standing beside a car, explaining why you should buy it, a housewife in a kitchen, demonstrating a new detergent, a cartoon character selling cereal. Sometimes the picture rolls, the image tumbling vertically in a way that makes everyone groan. Your father gets up, fiddles with the knobs on the back of the set, and after a few moments of adjustment the picture stabilizes. Sometimes the sound goes out, or the picture turns ghostly and doubled, and no amount of fiddling helps. You finish watching the show anyway, leaning forward, straining to make sense of the garbled audio and flickering images. At 11 o'clock the programming ends. The final show concludes, and then the station plays the national anthem, the flag waving on the screen while the music plays. Your father stands, out of habit, out of respect. Then the screen cuts to static, and the evening is over. Your father turns off the set, and the house goes quiet. There's something communal about it. This shared experience of watching together, of seeing the same thing at the same time. The next day at school, everyone talks about what they watched. Did you see Lucy? Did you see the ending? No one missed it, because if you missed it, you were left out of the conversation. Television in the 1950s is an event, a destination, a reason to gather. It's not background noise or a default activity. It's something you choose, something you make time for, something you experience together as a family. After school, you drop your books inside the front door and disappear until dinner. No one asks where you're going. No one tracks your location. You simply go, riding your bike down streets without a helmet, playing in construction sites, climbing trees, building forts in the woods at the edge of town. You play with whoever is outside, the neighbour kids, children you've never met before, the older boys who let you tag along if you can keep up. Games are invented on the spot, rules negotiated and renegotiated, disputes settled without adult intervention. When the streetlights come on, you know it's time to go home. That's the only rule. Your bike is your freedom. A scratched and dented hand-me-down with a banana seat and a basket on the front. You ride it everywhere. Down the sidewalk, through backyards, along the dirt path that wind through the empty lots at the edge of the neighbourhood. No one wears a helmet. The idea would seem absurd, overprotective, unnecessary. You've fallen dozens of times, scraped your knees and elbows, gotten back on and kept riding. The neighbourhood is your territory, mapped in your mind with perfect clarity. You know every hiding spot, every shortcut, every house where you're welcome to ask for water. You know which yards have dogs, which trees are good for climbing, which streets are steep enough for coasting. You navigate by landmarks, The oak tree with the tyre swing, the house with the red door, the corner where the sidewalk buckles into a ramp perfect for jumping. Other children appear as if summoned, spilling out of houses and garages, drawn by the sound of voices, by the sight of bikes and balls, by the magnetic pull of unstructured play. Teams form spontaneously, kickball in the street using parked cars as bases, hide-and-seek in backyards with the old oak tree as home base, tag that sprawls across multiple properties, children vaulting fences and racing through flower beds without permission or consequence. No adults supervise. They're inside, cooking dinner, folding laundry, trusting that the neighbourhood itself is supervision enough. Someone's mother might glance out the window occasionally, might call out a reminder to stay out of the street, but otherwise you're on your own. The games have rules, but the rules are flexible, negotiated on the fly. Arguments erupt over who was tagged, who was safe, whether that ball was fair or foul. Voices rise, accusations fly, and then someone proposes a compromise and play resumes. No one runs inside to tattle. Conflicts are resolved among yourselves, often badly, but resolved nonetheless. You play until you're filthy. Grass-stained knees, dirt under your fingernails, sweat soaking through your shirt. You play until you're thirsty, until someone's mother brings out a pitcher of Kool-Aid and a stack of paper cups, and you all crowd around the porch, gulping it down, red mustaches staining your upper lips. The older kids tolerate your presence if you're useful, if you can keep up, if you don't whine. They let you be the outfielder in baseball, the goalie in street hockey, the lookout in whatever game they've invented. You do it gladly, grateful to be included, determined to prove you're not a baby. Time becomes elastic, unmeasured. You don't wear a watch. There are no phones to check. You measure the day by the light, by the angle of the sun, by the growing coolness of the air as evening approaches. Hours pass without notice, filled with running, laughing, shouting, the simple joy of movement and noise. The woods at the edge of the neighbourhood are a particular draw, dense enough to feel wild, close enough to be safe. You build forts from fallen branches, defend them from imaginary enemies, spend hours constructing elaborate hideouts that will be abandoned by next week. You find treasures, interesting rocks, rusty cans, a bird's nest fallen from a tree. You make up stories. These woods are haunted. That clearing is sacred ground. The creek beyond the ridge leads to another world. And then, just as the sky begins to darken, the streetlights flicker on. It's a signal, universal and unspoken. Time to go home. You pedal back through the dimming streets, legs tired, shirt untucked, hair wild. You arrive home just as your mother is setting the table, and she glances at you, notes your dishevelled state, and simply says, "Wash your hands." No one asks what you did. No one questions where you've been. The expectation is simply that you are outside, playing, being a child, and that's enough. Saturday morning means downtown, and downtown means seeing everyone you know. Your mother parks on Main Street, and you walk from store to store, the hardware store, the Five and Dime, the dress shop, the bakery. Each shop is small, specialised, owned by someone who lives in town. The pharmacist knows your name. The butcher asks about your father. The woman at the fabric store helps your mother choose patterns and offers advice about hemlines. Shopping takes hours, not because there is so much to buy, but because every transaction includes conversation, pleasantries, the small exchanges that weave a community together. You push through the heavy door of the hardware store and a bell jingles overhead, announcing your arrival. The smell hits you immediately. Oil and sawdust and metal, earthy and sharp. The owner looks up from behind the counter, recognises your mother, and greets her by name. She's come for picture hooks and a new mop head, and he walks her to the right aisle, pointing out options, explaining the differences, recommending the ones that last longest. He asks about your father's garden, remembers that he was planning to build new shelves in the garage, offers advice about wood stain. At the 5 and dime, you linger by the toy aisle while your mother browses kitchen items. The store is narrow and deep, aisles crammed with merchandise, plastic dishes, sewing notions, birthday cards, candy by the counter. Everything costs a nickel or a dime or a quarter, prices small enough that children can afford to buy things with their allowance. The woman at the register knows you're just looking, doesn't rush you, lets you pick up the toys and examine them before putting them back. The dress shop smells like perfume and fabric sizing, clean and feminine. Your mother flips through the rack of dresses while the shop owner watches, ready to offer opinions, to pull something from the back that just came in, to suggest alterations if the fit isn't quite right. She remembers what your mother bought last time, asks if she's still happy with it, mentions that they have the same style in a new colour. It's sales, but it doesn't feel pushy. It feels like help. The bakery is warm and sweet-smelling, clouds of sugar and yeast and butter rolling out every time the door opens. You peer into the glass case at rows of donuts, cookies, cakes decorated with elaborate icing flowers. Your mother orders a loaf of bread, sliced, and the baker wraps it in wax paper, ties it with string. She adds a few cookies for you and your brother, slipping them into a small paper bag, and your mother pays with coins from her change purse. Each stop takes time. Your mother chats with the shopkeepers, asks about their families, listens to their stories. She runs into neighbours doing their own shopping, and they stand in the aisle talking, catching up on news, making plans for church socials or school events. You stand beside her, shifting from foot to foot, bored but patient, because this is simply how shopping works. By the time you return to the car, your arms are full of packages wrapped in brown paper and tied with string. Your mother's shopping list is checked off, but more importantly, she's caught up with half the town, renewed connections, strengthened the web of relationships that hold the community together. Shopping in the 1950s isn't just about acquiring goods, it's about being seen, being known, participating in the social life of the town. The errands are the excuse, the conversations are the point. Sunday is different. The stores are closed, the streets are quiet, the whole town seems to exhale. Families go to church in the morning dressed in their best clothes, hats and gloves and polished shoes. Afterward, you go home for a large meal, usually roast chicken or ham, something that has been cooking slowly while you are gone. The afternoon stretches out lazy and unstructured. Some families visit relatives, others sit on the porch. Children play quietly in the yard. No one works, no one shops, no one rushes. Sunday is for rest, and rest is taken seriously. You wake later than usual, the house quiet, except for the sound of your mother in the kitchen preparing a light breakfast before church. The big meal will come later, after services, so breakfast is simple: toast and juice, maybe a soft-boiled egg. You dress carefully, putting on clothes reserved for Sundays. Your good pants, a pressed shirt, shoes that pinch slightly because they're meant to look nice, not be comfortable. The church is full when you arrive, families filing in and filling the pews in the same spots they occupy every week. Your family has its place, 3 rows from the back on the left side, and you slide in automatically, your mother smoothing your collar one last time before sitting down. The service is long, formal, filled with hymns you know by heart, and a sermon you half listen to, your mind wandering to the sunshine outside, to the afternoon ahead. Afterward, people linger on the church steps, talking, making plans, catching up on the week's news. Your mother chats with her friends while your father shakes hands with other men, their conversations brief and cordial. You stand beside your parents, polite and restless, until finally your father says, "We should get home," and you pile back into the car. The roast has been cooking since early morning, and when you walk through the door, the smell is overwhelming. Meat and onions and the faint sweetness of roasting vegetables. Your mother moves quickly, setting the table with the good dishes, the ones used only on Sundays, mashing potatoes, making gravy from the pan drippings. Your father carves the meat, and the family sits down to a meal that feels more abundant than weekday dinners, more deliberate, more special. After lunch, time slows to a crawl. Your father settles into his chair with the Sunday paper, which is thicker than the weekday edition, filled with supplements and comics. Your mother washes the dishes, then sits on the porch with a magazine. You and your brother are sent outside to play, but play feels different on Sunday. Quieter, more subdued, as if even games require a kind of reverence. Some Sundays, relatives come over, aunts and uncles and cousins spilling into the house, filling the living room with noise and laughter. Your mother serves coffee and pie, and the adults sit around talking for hours while children sprawl on the floor playing board games or retreat to the yard to chase each other in slow, lazy circles. Other Sundays, your family drives out to visit your grandparents, a trip that takes an hour each way. You sit in the back seat watching the countryside roll past, farms and fields and small towns that look just like yours. Your grandmother's house smells like mothballs and lavender, and she feeds you cookies from a tin kept on top of the refrigerator. By evening, the town is still quiet. No stores have opened. No one has gone back to work. The whole community has taken the day off, collectively, in a way that feels both restful and slightly eerie. The streets are empty except for families taking walks after dinner, moving slowly in the fading light. Sunday in the 1950s is a boundary, a line drawn between the work week and rest, between activity and stillness. It's protected, preserved, taken seriously, in a way that makes the other 6 days possible. The rest isn't optional. It's required, expected, woven into the fabric of the week. And when Monday morning comes, when the alarm goes off and the rush begins again, Sunday feels like a gift you didn't know you needed until it was over. The mailman walks his route every afternoon, a leather bag slung over his shoulder, stopping at each house to slip envelopes through the slot in the door. Mail is personal, tangible, eagerly anticipated. Letters from relatives, postcards from friends on vacation, catalogues thick as phone books. Your mother sits at the kitchen table in the afternoon, writing replies in her careful cursive, addressing envelopes, licking stamps. Correspondence takes days, sometimes weeks, but that slowness gives it weight. A letter means someone sat down, chose their words, committed them to paper. It feels more intentional than anything that arrives instantly. You hear the mailman before you see him, the soft thud of his footsteps on the sidewalk, the rustle of paper as he sorts through his bag. He wears a uniform, navy blue with a cap, and carries himself with the quiet authority of someone who knows every house on his route, who remembers birthdays and anniversaries, who notices when mail piles up and someone hasn't been home. The mail slot is in the front door, a brass rectangle that clatters when envelopes slide through. You hear it from wherever you are in the house, that distinctive sound that means something has arrived. You run to gather the letters from where they've fallen on the floor, carrying them to your mother like treasures. She wipes her hands on her apron and sits down to sort through them. Bills go in one pile, advertisements in another, but the letters, the real letters, those she opens carefully, slitting the envelopes with a butter knife, unfolding the pages slowly. Her sister writes every week from 2 states away, pages filled with cramped handwriting describing her children, her garden, her worries. Your mother reads aloud sometimes, sharing news, laughing at jokes, her face softening at mentions of people and places she hasn't seen in years. Sometimes there are postcards, glossy images of beaches or mountains or famous landmarks, the backs filled with hasty messages written in pen that sometimes smudges. Wish you were here. Weather is beautiful. Miss you. The brevity makes them feel precious, little windows into someone else's adventure. Your mother keeps the letters, filing them in a shoebox in her closet, organised by sender and date. Sometimes she pulls out old ones and rereads them, tracing the handwriting with her finger, remembering. The letters are a record, a history of relationships maintained across distance and time. Writing back is a ritual. Your mother sits at the kitchen table after the dishes are done, a pad of stationery in front of her, a pen in her hand. She writes slowly, thinking about her words, crossing out mistakes, starting over when necessary. She describes the weather, the children, small happenings in town. She asks questions, offers sympathy, shares recipes. The letter grows over several sittings, a page added here and there, until finally she signs it, folds it, slides it into an envelope. Addressing the envelope is an art. Her handwriting is neat, precise, the address centered perfectly. She copies it from her address book, a small leather-bound volume filled with names and addresses collected over years. Some entries are crossed out, updated when someone moves. Others are faded, the ink pale from age. The stamp goes in the upper right corner, licked and pressed down firmly. She takes the letter to the mailbox at the end of the driveway, raising the little red flag to signal the mailman that there's outgoing mail. Tomorrow he'll collect it, and the letter will begin its journey, travelling by truck and train, and eventually another mailman's bag until it arrives at its destination days later. Waiting for a reply requires patience. You can't check whether someone received your letter. You can't know if they've read it yet, if they're planning to respond, if your letter got lost somewhere along the way. You simply wait, trusting that eventually, if all goes well, a reply will arrive. The mail connects you to the wider world in a tangible way. Letters from relatives keep you updated on distant lives. Catalogues bring images of things you can't see in local stores. Magazines arrive monthly, their glossy pages filled with stories and recipes and advice. But mostly the mail is personal. It's proof that someone thought of you, took the time to write, cared enough to send something. And in a world without phones in every pocket, without instant messages or video calls, that proof matters deeply. Your mother carries a small change purse in her handbag, filled with bills folded neatly and coins sorted by size. Credit cards don't exist yet, not for ordinary people. If you don't have cash, you don't buy. Some stores offer charge accounts for trusted customers, a running tab settled at the end of the month, but that requires a relationship, a reputation, a sense of mutual trust. Money feels real in a way it doesn't when it's just numbers on a screen. You can see it, count it, feel it leave your hand. Every purchase is a deliberate choice. Your mother budgets carefully, keeping her housekeeping money in an envelope in the kitchen drawer. Your father gives her cash every Friday, and she divides it among several envelopes. Groceries, household expenses, savings. She knows exactly how much is in each envelope, how much she can spend before running out, how much needs to be saved for next week. Shopping means paying as you go. At the grocery store, she tallies the cost in her head as she shops, keeping a running total, making sure she doesn't exceed what's in her purse. At the register, she watches the clerk ring up each item, checking the total, counting out bills and coins, waiting for her change. The transaction is physical, tangible, final. Some stores, the ones where your mother shops regularly, offer charge accounts. The grocer keeps a ledger behind the counter, a thick book with pages for each customer. When your mother shops, the clerk writes down what she's bought and the total, and your mother signs her name at the bottom. At the end of the month, she comes in and pays the full amount in cash, settling the account. It's a system built on trust. The grocer trusts that she'll pay. Your mother trusts that the ledger is accurate, that she won't be overcharged, that the system is fair. It works because everyone knows everyone, because reputations matter, because a store that cheats its customers won't stay in business long. Credit, in the modern sense, doesn't exist. There are no credit cards, no ability to borrow money easily for purchases. If you want something you can't afford, you save for it. Your mother keeps a savings envelope, adding $1 or $2 each week, slowly accumulating enough for the new winter coat she needs, the new curtains for the living room, the birthday present for your father. Layaway is an option for big purchases. Your mother picks out the item and the store holds it for her, setting it aside in a back room. She pays a little each week, and when the full price is paid, she takes it home. It requires patience, discipline, but it means she can buy things without going into debt. Money feels different when you handle it physically. You can see your mother's money dwindling as the week goes on, the envelope getting lighter, the bills fewer. You understand, even as a child, that money is finite, that when it's gone, that choices have to be made about what's necessary and what can wait. Your mother teaches you to count change, to recognize coins and bills, to make sure you're getting the right amount back when you pay for something. She sends you to the store sometimes with exact change for a loaf of bread or a quart of milk, and you hand over the coins carefully, counting them out to make sure you have enough. There's no buying on impulse, no clicking a button and having something arrive tomorrow. Every purchase requires planning, saving, a deliberate decision that this thing is worth the money, worth more than the other things that money could buy. And because money is physical, losing it is catastrophic. Your mother guards her purse carefully, keeps it closed, knows exactly what's inside. Losing a $5 bill is a genuine crisis, money that can't be replaced, that was earmarked for something necessary. The discipline shapes how people think about money, about saving, about spending. You don't buy what you can't afford. You save for what you want. You make do with what you have. It's a mindset born of necessity, but it creates a relationship with money that feels more grounded, more real, more honest than the abstraction of credit and debt. After school, teenagers gather at the drugstore soda fountain, sliding onto round stools that spin, ordering Coke floats and cherry phosphates and milkshakes so thick the straw stands straight up. The soda jerk works behind the counter, mixing drinks with practiced flair, chatting with customers, remembering everyone's usual order. A Coke costs a nickel. A sundae costs a dime. You can sit for an hour, talking, laughing, flirting, and no one tells you to leave. The soda fountain is where friendships deepen, where gossip spreads, where the social world of teenagers unfolds in real time. The drugstore sits on the corner of Main Street, its big front windows displaying advertisements for soap and aspirin and Kodak film. But the real draw is the soda fountain along the back wall, a long marble counter with chrome fixtures and a mirrored backsplash that makes the space feel bigger, brighter, busier than it is. You push through the door after school, still wearing your school clothes, books tucked under your arm, and the first thing you notice is the sound. The hiss of the soda dispenser, the clink of spoons against glass, the murmur of voices and laughter. The second thing is the smell, sweet and slightly medicinal, vanilla and cherry syrup, and the faint chemical tang of the drugstore itself. The stools are chrome with red vinyl seats, worn smooth from years of use. You spin onto one, dropping your books on the counter, and the soda jerk glances up, nods in recognition. He's a high school senior working after school and on weekends, earning money for college. He knows what you want without asking. The menu's written on a chalkboard behind the counter, though most people order the same thing every time. Cokes are the most popular, dispensed from the fountain in a rush of fizzing carbonation served in cone-shaped glasses with a straw. Floats a Coke with a scoop of vanilla ice cream, the ice cream melting slowly into the soda, creating a creamy, fizzy combination. Cherry Cokes are Coke with a shot of cherry syrup, bright red and impossibly sweet. Milkshakes are made to order, the soda jerk scooping ice cream into a metal cup, adding milk, mixing it on a machine that whirs loudly, then pouring the thick result into a tall glass. The shake is so thick you have to suck hard to get it through the straw, and sometimes you give up and eat it with a spoon instead. The social hierarchy of the soda fountain is clear but unspoken. The popular kids claim the centre stools, their laughter louder, their presence more confident. Couples sit close together, sharing sundaes, feeding each other spoonfuls of ice cream. The quieter kids sit at the edges, nursing a single Coke for an hour, grateful just to be part of the scene. Conversations flow easily here. You talk about teachers, about homework, about who's dating whom, about plans for Friday night. Information spreads quickly. Parties, football games, who got in trouble, who got their driver's license. The soda fountain is where you hear everything first, where rumours start, where reputations are made and broken. The soda jerk is part of the ecosystem, listening but not participating, wiping down the counter, refilling glasses, occasionally offering commentary that's both welcomed and respected. He sees everything, knows everyone's secrets, but keeps them to himself. It's an unspoken rule. What happens at the soda fountain stays at the soda fountain. Sometimes adults come in, sitting at the far end of the counter, ordering coffee and pie, but mostly the soda fountain belongs to the teenagers. It's neutral territory, a place where you can be without supervision, where you can talk freely, where you can figure out who you are and who you want to be. Time moves differently here. An hour can pass without you noticing, marked only by the melting ice in your glass, the slowly emptying dishes of other customers, the changing light through the front windows. No one rushes you. No one makes you feel like you're taking up space. As long as you've bought something, you're welcome to stay. Eventually someone looks at the clock and realizes it's almost dinner time. The group disperses reluctantly, gathering books, leaving coins on the counter, pushing through the door back into the late afternoon. But tomorrow, after school, you'll be back, sliding onto the same stool, ordering the same drink, continuing the same conversations. Because the soda fountain isn't just a place to buy a Coke, it's where you belong. Your father's car is a marvel of chrome and steel, long and heavy and powerful, but it has no seat belts, no airbags, no crumple zones. The steering wheel is a solid metal ring that could crush your chest in a collision. The dashboard is hard, unforgiving, steel. Children sit in the front seat, stand in the back, lean out the windows. No one thinks twice about it. Cars are tools, not safety capsules. They break down regularly, and your father fixes them himself in the driveway, because engines are simple enough that a man with a wrench and a manual can understand them. Driving feels free, unregulated, dangerous in ways both thrilling and sobering. The car sits in the driveway like a proud animal, its chrome bumpers gleaming in the sun, its wide body taking up more space than modern cars ever will. It's a 1953 Chevrolet, pale blue with white wall tyres and enough chrome trim to blind you on a sunny day. Your father washes it every Saturday, lovingly soaping and rinsing, polishing the chrome until it shines. Getting in is an event. The doors are heavy, requiring real strength to swing open, and they close with a solid thunk that sounds permanent. The seats are wide, upholstered in vinyl or cloth, designed for comfort over safety. There are no seat belts, not even in the front. The idea exists, but it hasn't caught on yet. Most people view them as unnecessary, even cowardly, a sign that you don't trust your own driving. Children pile into the back seat without restraint, 3 or 4 across, sometimes more if you're small. On long trips, you lie down in the back using the seat as a bed, or you kneel backward, watching the road disappear behind you. Sometimes your father lets you stand on the hump in the middle, holding onto the back of the front seat, your head near the ceiling, feeling every bump and sway. The dashboard is a work of art, all curves and chrome, with big round gauges that glow softly at night. But it's also a hazard, hard metal and sharp edges, no padding anywhere. In an accident, anything not secured becomes a projectile, including people. Your father takes care of the car himself. When something breaks, which it does regularly, he opens the hood and peers inside, identifying the problem by sound and smell and experience. He changes the oil in the driveway, draining the old oil into a pan, pouring in fresh. He replaces spark plugs, adjusts the carburetor, patches radiator hoses with tape and hope. The engine is simple enough to understand, a far cry from the computerized systems that will come later. Your father has a repair manual, and he consults it when he's stumped, reading the instructions, studying the diagrams. Sometimes he takes you with him to the auto parts store, letting you carry the old part so the clerk can match it with a new one. Driving itself feels different, freer, less regulated. There are speed limits, but they're suggestions more than rules. Highway patrol exists, but they're few and far between. Drunk driving is common, barely discouraged, certainly not the crime it will become. People drive home from parties after several drinks, weaving slightly, trusting in luck and slow reflexes. The roads are narrower, less maintained, full of potholes and rough patches. Highways are 2 lanes winding through towns instead of bypassing them. Driving across the country takes days, requires planning, involves stopping frequently to check the engine, add oil, let the radiator cool down. Accidents are frequent and often fatal. Without seat belts, without crumple zones, without airbags, collisions send people through windshields into dashboards, out of cars entirely. Your parents know someone who died in a car accident. Everyone does. It's a fact of life, a risk accepted as the price of mobility. But despite the danger, or maybe because of it, driving feels thrilling. The power of the engine, the speed, the freedom to go anywhere, to leave town on a whim, to chase the horizon, it's intoxicating. Your father drives with one hand on the wheel, the other arm draped over the seat, relaxed and confident. The windows are down, the wind whipping through the car, the radio playing loud. This is driving in the 1950s, beautiful, dangerous, free in ways that will never quite be recaptured. The cars are art, the roads are open, and safety is someone else's problem. In the backyard, there's a metal drum where your family burns trash every week. Paper, cardboard, food scraps, anything that will catch fire goes into the barrel. Your father lights it in the evening, and you watch the flames climb into the sky, smoke drifting across the neighborhood. Everyone does this. Every backyard has a burn barrel. The air smells like burning garbage on trash day, a smell so common it barely registers. No one talks about pollution or air quality. Trash simply disappears into smoke, and that feels efficient. The barrel sits at the back corner of the yard, a rusted 55-gallon drum with holes punched in the sides for ventilation. It's been there for years, the metal corroded by heat and weather, the bottom filled with a layer of ash that never quite empties out. All week, trash accumulates in a box in the garage. Newspapers, cereal boxes, food wrappers, vegetable peelings, anything combustible. Wednesday evening is burning night. Your father carries the box outside, dumps it into the barrel, and arranges the contents loosely so air can circulate. He crumples a few pages of newspaper, tucks them into the bottom, and strikes a match. The paper catches immediately, flames licking upward, igniting cardboard and wood and anything else dry enough to burn. The fire builds quickly, crackling and popping, sending sparks shooting up into the darkening sky. You stand back, watching, mesmerized by the flames, by the way the trash transforms into ash, collapsing in on itself as it burns. The heat is intense, pushing you back another step, warming your face even from several feet away. Smoke rises in a thick grey column, drifting across the yard, across the fence into the neighbour's yard, out into the street. It smells acrid and chemical, a mix of burning paper and plastic and organic matter. You breathe it in without thinking, the smell as familiar as dinner cooking, as ordinary as grass clippings. Every backyard has a similar scene unfolding. Smoke rises from yards up and down the street, a dozen plumes reaching toward the sky. On still evenings, the smoke hangs low, creating a haze that softens the streetlights, that makes the neighbourhood look dreamlike and slightly apocalyptic. Your father tends the fire, poking at it with a stick, stirring the contents to make sure everything burns. Food scraps hiss and steam, cardboard blackens and curls, glass bottles crack from the heat. Occasionally something doesn't burn well, a wet piece of cardboard or a clump of grass clippings, and he pulls it out with the stick, setting it aside for next week. The fire burns for an hour, sometimes more, gradually diminishing until only embers remain, glowing red in the bottom of the barrel. Your father pours a bucket of water over them, sending up a final hiss of steam, and then the evening's burning is done. Some things don't go in the barrel. Tin cans are rinsed and saved, taken to the dump once a month. Glass bottles are returned to the store for the deposit. But everything else, paper, cardboard, food waste, wood scraps, it all burns. There's no garbage truck coming to haul it away, no landfill to bury it in. Fire is the solution, simple and immediate. No one questions it. No one talks about what burning trash might do to the air, to the lungs of children playing nearby, to the environment. The concept of pollution exists, but it's abstract, something that happens in faraway cities with factories and smokestacks, not in your backyard with a barrel and some household trash. The system works in its way. Trash disappears. The barrel never fills up. There's no accumulation, no overwhelming sense of waste. You produce garbage, you burn it, it's gone. Simple, efficient, direct. Years later, when burning trash is banned, when garbage trucks come weekly to haul away bags and bags of waste, people will look back on the burn barrel with a mixture of nostalgia and horror. How did we not know? How did we think that was okay? But in 1955, standing in your backyard watching flames consume the week's trash, it doesn't feel wrong. It feels normal, practical, like one more household chore completed, one more small ritual that marks the rhythm of the week. A man in a suit appears on your porch one evening, carrying a sample volume of the Encyclopedia Britannica. He is polite, earnest, convincing. He talks about the importance of knowledge, about giving your children every advantage, about the investment in their future. Your parents listen, hesitate, calculate. The full set costs a significant amount of money, paid in monthly installments. But knowledge is valuable, and books are how you access it. There is no internet to search, no instant answers. If you want to know something, you look it up, and that requires owning the book. So your parents agree, and a few weeks later, a box arrives containing 20 volumes that will sit on the shelf for the next 30 years. The knock comes after dinner, unexpected but not entirely surprising. Door-to-door salesmen are common, selling everything from vacuum cleaners to insurance policies. Your father answers, and the man introduces himself, shaking hands firmly, asking if he can come in for just a few minutes. Your parents exchange a glance, wary but curious, and your mother clears a spot at the dining room table. The salesman sits, opens his briefcase and pulls out a single volume, Volume M, setting it on the table like a sacred object. The cover is dark blue with gold lettering, impressive and substantial. He opens it to a random page and begins to talk. Do you know how many species of mammals exist? Do you know the causes of the Civil War? Do you know how a combustion engine works? The questions tumble out, and before your parents can answer, he's flipping through the encyclopedia, showing them entries filled with detailed text, photographs, diagrams, maps. This is everything, he says, gesturing to the book. Everything your children will need to succeed in school, to understand the world, to become educated citizens. He makes it sound less like a purchase and more like a moral obligation, an investment in your future, a gift to your children that will pay dividends for years. Your mother is interested but cautious. How much? She asks. The salesman doesn't flinch. The full set, 24 volumes, costs more than your father makes in a month. But, he adds quickly, we offer payment plans, just a few dollars a month. He breaks it down, makes it sound manageable, affordable, barely noticeable. Your father leans back, considering. It's a lot of money. Money that could go toward other things, car repairs, new winter coats, the savings account that never quite grows as fast as it should. But the salesman is persuasive, and the promise of knowledge, of giving you and your siblings an advantage, is compelling. Think about your children, the salesman says, his voice soft, reasonable. Think about the questions they'll ask as they grow up. Wouldn't you want to be able to answer them? Wouldn't you want them to have the tools to answer them themselves? Your parents look at you, standing in the doorway watching this strange negotiation. They think about school, about the projects you'll have to complete, the reports you'll have to write. They think about the library downtown, small and understaffed, with limited hours and older books. They think about being able to look things up at home, at any time, without having to leave the house. Your father nods slowly. All right, he says, we'll do it. The salesman smiles, pulls out a contract, explains the terms. Your father signs. They shake hands again, and the salesman promises the full set will arrive within a few weeks. He leaves the sample volume as a goodwill gesture so you can start using it right away. When the encyclopedias arrive, they come in a heavy box that requires both your parents to carry inside. They unpack them carefully, lining them up on a shelf in the living room, the spines creating a rainbow of letters from A to Z. They look impressive, official, important, and they get used, at least at first. You pull down a volume when you have a school project, flipping through until you find the entry you need, reading the dense text, studying the black and white photographs. Your parents consult them when a question comes up at dinner, settling disputes, satisfying curiosity. But over time, the encyclopedias become more decoration than tool. They sit on the shelf, gathering dust, occasionally consulted but mostly just present, a symbol of education and aspiration. By the time you're grown, the information in them is outdated, and no one bothers to look things up anymore. But in 1955, when they first arrive and are lined up neatly on the shelf, they represent something important. The belief that knowledge matters, that education is worth investing in, that the future is built on what you know. Your mother gets dressed in the morning the way soldiers prepare for battle. Girdle first, pulling and smoothing and adjusting until everything is contained, compressed, controlled. Then stockings, clipped to the girdle with small metal fasteners. Then the dress, carefully chosen, modest in length and neckline. Then the gloves, white or beige, worn whenever she leaves the house. A woman in public without gloves is underdressed, almost scandalous. Comfort is secondary. Appearance is everything. And so she moves through her day armoured in fabric and elastic, holding herself together in ways both literal and symbolic. The girdle hangs in her closet, a complicated garment made of thick elastic and boning, designed to reshape the body into the idealized silhouette of the era. Small waist, smooth hips, no visible lines or bulges. Getting into it is a process that requires determination and occasionally mild profanity muttered under her breath where no one can hear. She steps into it, pulling it up over her hips, tugging and adjusting, wrestling the elastic into place. It's tight, deliberately so, compressing her midsection, flattening her stomach, eliminating any softness. She hooks the garters that dangle from the bottom, small metal clips that will hold up her stockings. The stockings come next, delicate nylon that snags easily, that must be handled with care. She rolls each one carefully up her leg, smoothing out wrinkles, adjusting the seam so it runs straight up the back of her calf. She clips them to the garters, checking in the mirror to make sure everything is even, that the lines are straight. Now comes the dress, chosen the night before, pressed and ready. She slips it over her head carefully, mindful of her hair, of her makeup. The dress is modest by modern standards. Hem below the knee, neckline high, sleeves covering her, shoulders, bright colours or bold patterns for casual wear, darker tones and simpler cuts for church or formal occasions. She fastens the buttons, adjusts the collar, smooths the skirt. The girdle beneath creates the right shape, the dress falling in clean lines over the compressed and controlled body underneath. She checks the mirror, turning side to side, making sure everything looks right, that there are no visible panty lines, no bumps or bulges, nothing that would suggest the body beneath is anything other than perfectly smooth and controlled. The gloves are the final touch, slipped onto her hands before she leaves the house. Short white cotton gloves for everyday errands, longer gloves for church or special occasions. A lady wears gloves in public. It's not a suggestion, it's a rule, one enforced by social expectation and the disapproving looks of other women. The gloves serve multiple purposes. They protect the hands, they signal respectability, they complete the outfit. But metaphor and a literal constraint, shaping not just the body but the experience of moving through the world. Your mother doesn't complain, at least not out loud. This is simply what women do, what's expected, what's required to be taken seriously, to be respected, to be seen as proper and respectable. The alternative, to reject the girdle, to go bare-handed, to choose comfort over appearance, is unthinkable, a rebellion too radical to consider. And so she dresses each morning, layer by layer, building the armour that will carry her through the day, holding herself together with elastic and determination, and the quiet strength it takes to be a woman in an era that demands so much and acknowledges so little. The doctor prescribes pills, and you take them without asking what they are. The label says the dose, but not much else. Side effects are rarely discussed. Interactions are barely understood. If you have trouble sleeping, the doctor gives you sleeping pills. If you're anxious, he gives you something to calm your nerves. Mothers are given diet pills to lose weight, pep pills to keep up with housework, tranquilizers to manage stress. Pharmacies sell them freely. No one talks about addiction or dependency. Medicine is simple. You have a problem, you take a pill, the problem goes away. It feels efficient, modern, almost miraculous. The medicine cabinet in your bathroom is a small museum of mid-century pharmaceuticals, brown glass bottles with typed labels, pills rattling inside, cotton wadded in the top to keep them from spilling. The labels list the patient's name, the doctor's name, the dosage, and instructions like take one at bedtime or take as needed for nervousness. But there's no list of ingredients, no warning labels, no information about what the pills actually are or what they might do to you beyond their intended purpose. Your mother takes pills to help her sleep, small white tablets that knock her out within an hour, leaving her groggy and slow the next morning. She takes other pills to wake up, to give her energy for the long day of cooking and cleaning and managing the household. The doctor prescribes them freely, refills the prescriptions without hesitation, assures her they're perfectly safe. Your father takes pills for his blood pressure, though he's not entirely sure what they do or why he needs them. The doctor said to take them, so he does, swallowing one each morning with his coffee, trusting that the doctor knows best. The concept of informed consent doesn't really exist yet. Doctors are authorities, almost priestly in their status, and patients don't question them. When the doctor prescribes something, you take it. When he says it's safe, you believe him. The idea that you might have a right to know what you're putting in your body, that you might want to understand the risks, that you might choose to refuse treatment, these ideas are foreign, almost insulting to the medical profession. Diet pills are everywhere, advertised in magazines, sold over the counter, prescribed liberally to women who want to lose weight. They're amphetamines, though no one uses that word, and they work by suppressing appetite and speeding up metabolism. Women take them daily, losing weight quickly, feeling energized, not realizing they're taking drugs that are highly addictive and potentially dangerous. Tranquilizers are just as common, prescribed to women for anxiety, stress, the vague sense of dissatisfaction that comes from living in a constrained role with limited options. The pills dull the edges, smooth out the worry, make it possible to get through the day without screaming. They're called mother's little helpers, and they're accepted as a reasonable solution to the problem of women's emotions. Children are dosed with medicine too, often without understanding what they're taking. If you're sick, the doctor prescribes something, and your mother gives it to you in a spoon and you swallow it down. Cough syrup contains codeine. Teething medicine contains alcohol. No one worries about these things. They're medicine, and medicine is good for you. The pharmacy is a place of trust. You bring in a prescription, and the pharmacist fills it, counting out pills into a bottle, typing a label, handing it over with brief instructions. There's no counselling, no discussion of side effects or interactions, no information sheet explaining what the medication does. You take it on faith. Addiction is rarely discussed, and when it is, it's framed as a moral failing, not a medical issue. People who become dependent on sleeping pills or tranquilizers are seen as weak, lacking willpower, not as victims of overprescription and inadequate information. The idea that doctors might be creating addiction by handing out pills so freely doesn't occur to most people. The simplicity of it is appealing. You have a problem, there's a pill for it, you take the pill, the problem goes away. It feels modern, scientific, a triumph of medicine over suffering. The television ads reinforce this message. Tired housewives transformed by vitamins, anxious people calmed by mysterious tablets, pain erased with the snap of a finger. But beneath the simplicity is danger. Medications are powerful, and using them without understanding them, without monitoring them, without awareness of their long-term effects, creates problems that won't become apparent for years. By the time people realize how many were addicted to tranquilizers, how many damaged their health with diet pills, how many children were unnecessarily medicated, it'll be too late to undo the harm. In the 1950s, though, medicine is magic. Doctors are infallible, and pills are the solution to everything. You trust, you swallow, you wait for the problem to disappear, believing that modern science has given you a shortcut to health and happiness. Your front door doesn't have a deadbolt, and most of the time it isn't even locked. You leave. Windows open at night for the breeze. Children wander in and out of neighbours' houses without knocking. Keys are left in cars. Bicycles are left on lawns. The idea of a security system would seem paranoid, unnecessary, almost insulting. Trust is the default setting. Community is built on the assumption that people are basically good, that neighbours look out for each other, that crime is something that happens somewhere else. It's not naivete exactly. It's just a different world, smaller, slower, more connected. Your mother leaves the house to run errands, pulling the door closed behind her, but not checking to see if it's locked. The idea doesn't occur to her. She's going to the grocery store, she'll be back in an hour, and there's nothing in the house worth stealing anyway, or at least nothing she imagines anyone would want. The television is heavy and obvious. The jewellery is costume. The cash is hidden in an envelope in the kitchen drawer, a hiding place so common it's practically a cliché. But somehow that makes it feel safer, like everyone knows where to look so no one bothers looking. At night, your father makes a circuit of the house before bed, checking that the stove is off, that the back door is closed but rarely locking anything. The windows stay open even on the first floor, screens keeping out bugs but nothing else, curtains drifting in the breeze. You fall asleep to the sound of the neighbourhood, dogs barking, distant voices, cars passing slowly on the street. The openness feels safe, not vulnerable. You're part of the world, not sealed away from it. Children move freely between houses, treating the neighbourhood as one extended home. You run next door to borrow an egg for your mother, walking straight into the kitchen without knocking, calling out a greeting. Mrs. Henderson waves from the living room, tells you the eggs are in the fridge, help yourself. You take one, say thank you, and leave the same way you came in. Your best friend's house is as familiar as your own. You know where they keep the glasses, where the cookies are hidden, which chair is your friend's father's and therefore off limits. You show up after school and walk right in, heading upstairs to your friend's room without announcing yourself. Their mother knows your voice, knows your footsteps, doesn't need to check who's arrived. Cars sit in driveways with keys in the ignition, drivers running into the store for just a minute, trusting that no one will drive off. Your father leaves his car unlocked always, windows cracked even when it's parked downtown for hours. The only time anyone locks a car is in winter when the snow is deep and starting it is difficult, and even then it's less about security and more about convenience. Bicycles are left wherever they land, on front lawns, leaning against trees, lying in driveways. They're not locked to anything, not secured, just left. Occasionally one goes missing, taken by a kid from another street who needed a ride, home, and it usually reappears within a few days, abandoned somewhere else, no harm done. The assumption is that it's borrowed, not stolen, and that assumption is usually correct. The lack of security creates a kind of accountability. Everyone knows everyone, or at least knows of them. If someone is walking down your street who doesn't belong, neighbours notice, not with suspicion exactly, but with awareness. A stranger stands out. A car parked in an unusual spot gets attention. People watch, not in a paranoid way, but in the way people watch when they care about their community, when they feel responsible for each other. Your mother knows which houses have elderly residents who might need help, which families have young children who might wander. She keeps an eye out, glancing through the window occasionally, noting who's coming and going. It's not surveillance, it's neighbourliness. If something seems wrong, she'd investigate, knock on the door, make sure everything's all right. This informal network of watching without watching, caring without intruding, creates a sense of safety that locks and alarms can't replicate. You're safe not because your door is secure, but because you're part of a community that notices, that cares, that would act if something seemed wrong. And so you sleep with windows open, walk into neighbours' houses uninvited, leave your bicycle on the lawn, and trust that the world is fundamentally safe, that people are fundamentally good, that your neighbourhood is a place where bad things simply don't happen. It's a trust that feels justified, reinforced every day by the quiet evidence that nothing goes wrong, that everything stays where you left it, that tomorrow will look just like today. The butcher's truck rolls through your neighbourhood every Wednesday, a small refrigerated vehicle stocked with cuts of beef, pork, chicken wrapped in white paper. Your mother steps outside, looks over the selection and orders what she needs for the week. The butcher wraps it, writes the price on the package, and adds it to her tab. Everything is local, personal, transactional in a way that requires trust. The meat is fresh, slaughtered recently, sometimes that same day. There are no sell-by dates, no plastic packaging, no concerns about recalls. You simply trust the butcher to bring you good meat, and he does. The truck announces itself with a distinctive horn, 2 short beeps that echo down the street. Your mother hears it from inside and wipes her hands on her apron, heading out to the curb where the truck is already slowing to a stop. Other women emerge from their houses too, a small gathering forming on the sidewalk, the weekly ritual of buying meat transformed into a social occasion. The butcher is a thick man with forearms like hams, his apron stained from a morning of cutting and wrapping. He opens the back of the truck, revealing a gleaming refrigerated interior lined with cuts of meat, each wrapped in white paper and labelled in pencil. He knows your mother by name, asks how your father is feeling, whether you're over that cold you had last week. The transaction is personal, familiar, built on years of weekly interactions. Your mother peers into the truck, considering her options. She needs something for Sunday dinner, something for Wednesday's pot roast, ground beef and meatloaf. The butcher makes recommendations, pointing out which cuts are particularly good this week, which chickens are plump and fresh, what's on special. His advice is trusted, valued. He's not trying to unload inferior product. His reputation depends on quality, on making sure his customers are satisfied. She makes her choices, and he pulls out the packages, setting them on the small counter that folds down from the truck's side. He writes the prices on each package in grease pencil, then adds them up on a small pad of paper, the pencil moving quickly as he calculates the total. Your mother doesn't have cash with her today, so he adds it. To her account, a running tab he keeps in a worn ledger. She'll pay at the end of the month, settling up in cash, and he trusts her to do so because that's how the system works. The meat is fresh in a way that's hard to replicate later. The chicken was alive yesterday morning. The beef was butchered this week at a processing plant 20 miles away. There's no long supply chain, no weeks of transportation and storage. The meat goes from animal to butcher to your mother's hands in a matter of days, sometimes hours. You can taste the difference. The meat more flavorful, more tender, less watery than what will come later in plastic-wrapped packages on supermarket shelves. Your mother carries the packages inside, unwrapping them on the kitchen counter. The paper is translucent with blood and fat, and she folds it carefully to throw away later. She portions the meat for different meals, wrapping some for the icebox, some for tonight's dinner. There's no freezer yet, so everything must be used within a few days. Meal planning is essential, deliberate, built around what's fresh and what will spoil soon. The butcher's truck is part of a network of mobile vendors who make the rounds through neighbourhoods. The milkman in the morning, the butcher on Wednesday, the produce truck on Friday. Each one brings what the neighbourhood needs, saving housewives the trip downtown, making it possible to get fresh food without a car, without easy transportation. The vendors know their routes, know their customers, know who needs what and when. There's a rhythm to it, a predictability that structures the week. Wednesday means meat, so Monday and Tuesday meals use what's left from last week. Thursday and Friday meals use the fresh meat bought on Wednesday. Saturday you might make a trip downtown for something special, but mostly the truck provides what you need. The relationship between your mother and the butcher is built on mutual trust and mutual benefit. He needs customers to survive. She needs quality meat to feed her family. They both need the relationship to work, and so it does, week after week, year after year, until eventually the supermarkets expand, the meat counters grow, and the mobile butcher becomes unnecessary, obsolete, a relic of a time when commerce was personal and trust was currency. But in 1955, when the truck pulls up and your mother walks out to meet it, the system is alive and well. built on handshakes and running tabs and the simple assumption that people will do what they say they'll do. When the television stops working, which it does often, your father calls the repairman. He arrives a few days later carrying a toolbox and a worn manual and sets to work in your living room. The back of the television comes off, revealing a glowing maze of vacuum tubes, wires, capacitors. He tests each tube, finds the one that has burned out, replaces it, and the picture flickers back to life. The repair costs a few dollars. Throwing the television away and buying a new one would be unthinkable. Things are made to be fixed, and people know how to fix them. Planned obsolescence doesn't exist yet. Products are built to last. The repairman is a fixture in the neighbourhood, a middle-aged man with greying hair and reading glasses that hang from a cord around his neck. He drives a station wagon filled with tools and parts, a mobile workshop that follows him from house to house. Your mother knows to call him when the picture goes fuzzy, when the sound cuts out, when the screen shows nothing but rolling static. He's familiar, trusted, part of the infrastructure of daily life. He arrives mid-morning, wiping his feet carefully on the doormat before entering. Your mother offers him coffee, which he accepts, setting his toolbox down beside the television. He asks what's wrong, listens to your mother describe the symptoms, nods knowingly. He's heard it before. Televisions are temperamental, complex machines with dozens of components that can fail, and he's seen every failure imaginable. He unplugs the television, turns it around, and unscrews the back panel, setting it aside carefully. The interior is revealed. A tangle of wires in different colours, rows of vacuum tubes glowing faintly even unplugged, capacitors shaped like small cylinders, resistors with coloured bands. It looks impossibly complicated, like the inside of a machine from a science fiction story, but the repairman navigates it with ease. He pulls out a small device from his toolbox, a tube tester, and begins checking each vacuum tube one by one. He removes a tube, slides it into the tester, flips a switch and watches a meter. Most of them test fine, the needle swinging into the green zone. But eventually he finds one that doesn't, the needle barely moving, indicating that the tube is weak or dead. He holds it up to the light, examining the filament inside, confirming his diagnosis. From his toolbox he produces a replacement tube, unwrapping it from its protective cardboard sleeve. He slides it into the empty socket, pressing firmly until it seats properly. Then he replaces a few other tubes that tested weak, preventative maintenance to avoid another service call in a few weeks. He reassembles the back of the television, tightening the screws, making sure everything is secure. He plugs it in, turns it on, and waits. The television hums to life, the screen glowing, warming up slowly. After 30 seconds, a picture appears, clear and stable. He adjusts the horizontal hold, fine-tuning the image until it's perfect. Sound comes through the speakers, strong and clear. He nods, satisfied. The repair took 20 minutes. He writes up a bill on a small pad. Service call $3, tubes $2, total $5. Your mother pays him in cash, and he thanks her, tucks the money into his shirt pocket and gathers his tools. He'll be back in a few months when something else fails, and a few months after that, and again, because televisions require constant maintenance, constant care, and throwing them away simply isn't an option. The culture of repair extends beyond televisions. Everything is fixed rather than replaced. Toasters, radios, vacuum cleaners, washing machines. When something breaks, you call a repairman or you fix it yourself. Products are designed with repair in mind, with screws instead of glue, with replaceable parts readily available, with schematics printed in the owner's manual. Your father fixes small things himself, a lamp that stopped working, a toaster that won't heat evenly. He takes them apart on the kitchen table, studying the components, identifying the problem, ordering parts from the hardware store. He keeps a drawer full of spare fuses, extra wire, electrical tape, all the supplies needed for basic repairs. This mindset of repair and reuse shapes how people think about ownership. You don't buy something expecting to replace it in a few years. You buy something expecting it to last a decade, maybe longer. You take care of it, maintain it, repair it when necessary. The initial cost is higher, but the long-term cost is lower because you're not constantly replacing things, and so the television repairman makes his rounds, fixing televisions, radios, appliances, keeping the machines of daily life running. He's essential, valued, part of a system that assumes things can be fixed, should be fixed, will be fixed rather than discarded. It's a system built on skill and knowledge and the simple belief that waste is something to be avoided, not accepted. Your brother is 10 and he has a paper route. Every morning before school he wakes in the dark, rolls newspapers, loads them into his bike basket and delivers them to 40 houses before breakfast. He earns a few dollars a week, money he saves or spends on candy and comic books. No one thinks this is strange or exploitative. Work is considered good for children, character building, a way to learn responsibility. Boys mow lawns, shovel snow, deliver groceries. Girls babysit, help with sewing, sell lemonade. Childhood includes labour, and labour includes childhood. The line between the two is blurry in ways that would alarm modern parents. Your brother's alarm goes off at 5:30, a jarring bell that cuts through the pre-dawn silence. He stumbles out of bed, still half asleep, and pulls on his clothes in the dark, trying not to wake you. He pads downstairs where the stack of newspapers waits by the front door, delivered in a bundle by the distributor an hour earlier. He sits on the floor and begins rolling them, wrapping each one with a rubber band so it's tight and compact, suitable for throwing. It takes him 20 minutes to roll 40 papers, his fingers moving mechanically, his mind still foggy with sleep. When he's done, he loads them into the wire basket mounted on the front of his bike and heads out into the darkness. The streets are empty, silent except for the occasional car passing. Streetlights cast pools of yellow light. The air is cold, especially in winter, biting at his face and hands. He knows the route by heart. Down Maple Street, turn left on Oak, right on Pine, back around to Elm. 40 houses, 40 driveways, 40 newspapers thrown with varying degrees of accuracy. Most land on porches or front steps. Some miss, landing in bushes or flower beds, and he has to stop, retrieve them, place them properly. It's a point of pride to get it right, to be known as the paper boy who always delivers to the door, not the one whose papers end up scattered across lawns. He finishes in 40 minutes if everything goes well, longer if his aim is off, or if he has to double back for missed houses. By the time he pedals home, the sky is lightening, the neighbourhood beginning to wake. He locks his bike in the garage, washes his hands, and sits down for breakfast with the family, tired but satisfied, his job done for the day. Once a week, usually on Saturday, he goes around collecting payment. He carries a small ledger, knocking on doors, waiting while people find their wallets, accepting coins and bills, marking payments carefully. Some people tip him, an extra quarter or sometimes a whole $1, especially around the holidays. Others complain about a missed delivery from 2 weeks ago, and he apologizes, promises to be more careful, hopes they don't call the newspaper to complain. He earns $3 a week, sometimes $4 with tips. It's his money, earned through his own effort, and he's fiercely proud of it. He saves some in a jar in his room, spends some at the drugstore on comics and candy, occasionally splurges on a model airplane kit. The money is tangible proof of his growing independence, his ability to contribute, his transition from child to something approaching an adult. Other boys in the neighbourhood have similar jobs. One mows lawns in summer, pushing a manual mower from house to house, earning 50 cents per lawn. Another delivers groceries for the market on Saturday mornings, carrying heavy bags up porch steps, receiving tips from grateful customers. In winter, boys shovel driveways after snowstorms, working for hours in the cold for $1 or $2 per driveway. Girls work too, though their work is different, more domestic, more tied to traditional roles. They babysit for neighbours, earning 25 cents an hour to watch younger children, feed them dinner, put them to bed. They help their mothers with sewing, hemming curtains or mending clothes for other families, splitting the payment. In summer, they set up lemonade stands on hot days, selling paper cups of lukewarm lemonade for a nickel, pocketing change that feels significant even if it barely adds up. No one questions this. Work for children is normal, expected, even encouraged. It teaches responsibility, the value of money, the connection between effort and reward. The work is rarely dangerous, though it can be tiring, and it doesn't interfere too much with school, though your brother sometimes struggles to stay awake in his morning classes. The assumption is that children benefit from work, that it prepares them for adulthood, that learning to work young makes you a better person. And perhaps it does, in some ways. Your brother learns punctuality, learns to finish what he starts, learns that people depend on him, and he can meet those expectations. But it also means his childhood includes obligations, early mornings, physical labour, the weight of adult expectations. He doesn't get to sleep in. He doesn't get to be careless or forgetful. He has responsibilities, and meeting them matters. This is childhood in the 1950s, a blend of freedom and obligation, play and work, a time when children are given both independence and expectations, when they're trusted to handle jobs that later generations will consider inappropriate, when labour is simply part of growing up. The house grows quiet as evening settles in. Your father turns off the television. Your mother finishes the dishes. You brush your teeth, pull on your pyjamas and climb into bed. There is no glow from a phone, no hum from a computer, no notifications pulling your attention elsewhere. The room is dark. The neighbourhood is silent. You can hear the wind in the trees, a dog barking streets away, the distant rumble of a train. Sleep comes easily because there is nothing else to do, no reason to stay awake, no world demanding your presence. You close your eyes and the day ends the way it began, quietly, simply, completely. Your father makes his rounds, turning off lights one by one, the living room lamp, the hallway light, the porch light. The house dims progressively until only the glow from the kitchen remains. Your mother finishes wiping down the counters, hangs the dish towel to dry, and flips that switch too. Now the house is fully dark except for the faint moonlight coming through windows. There are no electronics humming in the background, no refrigerator with a lit interior, no digital clocks glowing red, no standby lights on appliances. When the lights go off, darkness is complete, absolute. The kind of darkness that city dwellers will rarely experience in later decades. Your eyes adjust slowly, and you can make out shapes, the furniture in your room, the window frame, the doorway leading to the hall. Outside, the neighbourhood settles into its own quiet. Porch lights blink off one by one. The last car of the evening passes slowly down the street, taillights disappearing around the corner. A dog barks once, twice, then falls silent. The sound carries in the still air, clear and distinct, then fades. You lie in bed listening to the house itself, the creak of floorboards as your parents move upstairs, the groan of pipes as your father washes his face, the soft murmur of your parents' voices in their bedroom, too low to make out words. These sounds are comforting, familiar part of the nightly ritual of winding down. Your mind begins to drift, thoughts loosening and fragmenting. You think about tomorrow, school, friends, the game you'll play at recess. But the thoughts don't stick. There's nothing pulling you back to alertness, no stimulation to keep your mind engaged. Boredom, in the best sense, settles over you like a blanket. The darkness helps. Without light, your body produces melatonin naturally, signaling that it's time to sleep. Without screens, your mind isn't overstimulated, isn't racing with images and information. Without noise, your nervous system can relax, releasing the tensions of the day. You hear your brother breathing steadily in the next room, already asleep. You hear the house settling, small creaks and pops as the wood contracts in the cooling night air. You hear the distant whistle of a train passing through town, a sound so regular it's comforting rather than disruptive, a reminder that the world continues beyond your darkened room. Your parents' voices stop. Their door clicks shut. The house is fully quiet now, everyone settled, everyone winding down. There's no television left on for background noise, no radio playing softly. The silence is deep, textured, alive with small sounds that emerge only when everything else stops. The rustle of leaves outside your window, the tick of the clock downstairs, your own breathing gradually slowing. Sleep approaches gently, not forced, but invited. Your body is tired from a day of playing outside, walking to and from school, eating real meals at regular times. Your mind is tired from a day of thinking, learning, interacting, all without the constant stimulation that will characterize later childhoods. You're ready to sleep, genuinely ready, in a way that feels natural and right. You turn onto your side, pulling the blanket up to your chin. The fabric smells like laundry soap and sunshine, line-dried earlier today. Your pillow is soft, slightly lumpy, worn from years of use. The mattress beneath you is firm, supportive. Everything is simple, comfortable, familiar. Your breathing slows, your thoughts scatter and fade. The darkness wraps around you, gentle and complete. Somewhere in the distance, a clock chimes 10. Your mother's voice, barely audible, murmurs goodnight to your father. He murmurs something back, then silence again. And then, without ceremony or struggle, you fall asleep. Deeply, peacefully, the kind of sleep that comes from a body that's been physically active, a mind that's not overstimulated, a life lived at a human pace. You sleep without interruption, without waking to check anything, without anxiety about what you might be missing. You sleep because it's dark, because it's quiet, because there's nothing else to do and nowhere else to be. The day is over, the house is still, the neighbourhood rests, and in the morning, when light filters through your window and the milkman's truck hums down the street, the day will begin again in the same gentle rhythm, the same predictable pattern, the same quiet simplicity that defines life in 1955. The telephone is not a convenience, it's a commitment. The rotary dial requires patience, focus, and a steady hand. You slip your finger into the hole corresponding to each number, pull it clockwise until it hits the metal stop, then release and wait while it clicks back to its starting position. A wrong number means starting over from the beginning. Long-distance calls are planned events, expensive enough that you write down what you need to say beforehand, keeping conversations brief and purposeful. The phone is heavy, tethered to the wall by a cord that stretches only so far, creating a physical boundary around your conversations. You stand in the kitchen or hallway where the phone hangs, holding the receiver to your ear while the dial clicks and whirs with each number. A local number takes 30 seconds to dial if you're careful, longer if you make a mistake. Your finger slips occasionally, landing between numbers, and you have to hang up and start again. The dial is stiff, requiring real effort to pull, and your finger sometimes aches after dialing several numbers in a row. Long-distance calls are events that require preparation and permission. Your mother wants to call her sister 3 states away, and your father calculates the cost, checks the budget, decides whether it's worth it. They'll call on Sunday evening when the rates are lower, after 8 o'clock when the charges drop. Your mother writes a list of topics to cover, determined not to waste a single expensive minute on small talk or silence. When the appointed time comes, she dials carefully, the long string of numbers taking almost a minute to complete. The phone rings on the other end, and when her sister answers, your mother speaks quickly, efficiently, covering everything on her list. The conversation lasts exactly 10 minutes, timed by the clock on the wall. When time is up, they say hurried goodbyes, and your mother hangs up hoping they covered everything important, knowing it will be weeks before they can afford to call again. Local calls are easier, but still require effort. You call your friend to make plans, standing in the hallway with the phone pressed to your ear, the coiled cord stretching and tangling. Your mother walks past, reminding you not to tie up the line too long. Other people might need to call. You keep the conversation brief, making your plans quickly, then hanging up and carefully untangling the cord. The physical nature of the phone shapes how you use it. You can't wander around the house while talking. You can't multitask. You stand in one place, focused entirely on the conversation, or you sit on the small chair kept near the phone specifically for long calls. The cord limits how far you can move, creating a radius of perhaps 6 feet. If you need privacy, you stretch the cord as far as it will go, stepping into the closet or around the corner, speaking in hushed tones, hoping no one walks by. Wrong numbers are common and frustrating. You dial carefully, but the elderly woman who answers insists you have the wrong number, even though you're certain you dialed correctly. You apologize, hang up, check the number again, dial more slowly this time. The phone rings, and the same woman answers. You apologize again, mystified, until you realize you transposed 2 digits and have been calling the wrong number all along. The phone company charges by distance and duration. Local calls are cheap, included in your monthly service. Long-distance calls are billed by the minute, with rates varying by distance and time of day. The bill arrives monthly, itemizing every long-distance call, the number called, the duration, the cost. Your father reviews it carefully, questioning any charges that seem excessive, occasionally calling the phone company to dispute a mistake. Busy signals are part of life. You call someone and, instead of ringing, you hear a rapid beeping. The line is busy. They're already on the phone with someone else. You hang up, wait a few minutes, try again. Still busy. You wait longer, try again. Eventually you give up, deciding to try again later, or just stop by their house instead. The operator is a real person you can call for help. If you're trying to reach someone and don't know their number, you dial 0 and ask the operator. She looks it up in her directory and either gives you the number or connects you directly. For long-distance calls, especially complicated ones, you sometimes go through the operator, giving her the number and waiting while she places the call, then charging it to your account. The phone is not background noise. It's not always available. It's not a device you carry with you. It's a fixed object in your home, a tool for necessary communication, a piece of technology that requires intention and effort to use. And because of that, phone calls matter more. They're deliberate, purposeful. Something you do when you have something to say, not something you do to fill empty time. So tonight, as you settle into your own quiet space, take a moment to think about the people who lived these days. The mothers who woke before dawn to make breakfast from scratch. The fathers who fixed what broke instead of replacing it. The children who played until the streetlights came on and knew their way home by heart. They were not living in a simpler time, not really. They were living in the only time they had, doing what needed to be done, holding their families and their neighborhoods together with routines and rituals, and the quiet assumption that tomorrow would come and they would meet it. There was care in those days, woven into the smallest gestures. The milkman who remembered your order, the doctor who came to your house, the neighbour who watched your children play without being asked, the shopkeeper who knew your name. These were not grand acts of heroism. They were ordinary kindnesses repeated daily until they became the fabric of a life, of a community, of a time we can still touch if we slow down enough to remember. You do not have to live in 1955 to carry something forward from it. You can sit at the table for dinner. You can know your neighbours' names. You can fix what breaks instead of throwing it away. You can let the evening end in darkness and silence, and trust that sleep will come when you stop asking it to wait. History is not always dramatic. Sometimes it is a porch light and a screen door and the sound of someone calling you home. And that is enough. That has always been enough. So rest now. Let the day end quietly, the way it did then, the way it still can now. Close your eyes. The world will be there in the morning. Good night.